Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Neil. I'm super excited today to be showing you guys a brand new product from my friends at Blackstar Amplification. Today we're going to check out the HT100 MKiii head. Obviously I'm a big fan of the HT100 MKII, which is over there in the background of the video if you can see it. I'm going to tell you how Blackstar have improved the HT100 MKiii, because obviously it can't just be the same amp that looks a bit different. They've actually improved quite a lot of the specs on the amp as well to bring it up to date with the rest of the Blackstar gear. Okay guys, this is going to be quite a long video today, so go get yourself a coffee, a beer, or a cup of tea, or whatever. Chill out and enjoy the video. First of all, we're going to unbox the HT100 MKiii, and I'm going to give you my first impressions on how it looks, because they have changed the look of the amp quite considerably. And then I'm going to mic up a 212 V30 loaded cab down here, and I'm going to show you the tones that you can produce in the room through a mic'd cab. If you guys want to skip the talking in this video, the spec rundown and all of that stuff, then just simply go down there below in the description and there's a timestamp and you can jump straight towards the playing. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's get this thing out of the box, and first of all, let's see what it looks like. Wow, okay guys, so first of all what I just want to say is first impressions of the amp and the new look that Blackstar have given it is it looks absolutely mint. I love it, it really suits me and my taste down to the ground. I wasn't a massive fan of the grill cloth, you know, the vintage style grill cloth on the old Blackstar MKII. I kind of got used to it over time, but I much prefer the Tolex on there and the kind of the old vintage JMP look rather than the grill cloth look. Now obviously this amp's been out a few days now and been released, and I've watched a couple of videos on it, and I've also seen some pictures of the amp, and what I will say is that the pictures and even the videos don't do the amp justice. It looks way better in the flesh than it does on the thumbnail pictures, you know, and all that type of stuff, and all the YouTube videos as well. I hope this video does it justice on how it looks. It really does look fantastic. It really does look a lot more expensive actually than the MKII. While we're talking about price, this thing is still under £1,000, okay? This retails at under £1,000, which is a pretty big bargain. What Blackstar have done with this amp is they've brought it in line with all other products. When Blackstar release a product nowadays, they seem to cram on as much specs as they can onto the products, you know, like they did on the AMP1, the AMP2, the AMP3, like they also did on the Department 10 preamp pedals. They seem to cram all these specs on to make the product suit numerous situations. So when you buy a Blackstar product for me, there's nothing missing. You know, there's nothing that that product isn't capable of, and this is no different. This is now brought up to date, and it's absolutely fantastic, the amount of things that they've put onto this head. The first thing that I noticed when I got this out of the box, other than the Tolex there on the front, was the logo has changed to a badge. I quite like the Blackstar old logo, to be honest, but the badge does look pretty mean. It makes the head look a lot stealthier, you know, than it used to do before. The panel here on the front is just about the same. It's still in like this matte black look. The controls on there are now chicken head controls, which I always say I'm not a massive fan of those, but these are smaller ones than say on the EVHs and the PVs. I think that you can knock them really easy. And I actually had somebody tamper with my knobs before a gig once. Another band came on and like swiped his hand across and knocked my controls all over, just because, you know, he was a bitch or whatever. But these ones are smaller, and I quite like these actually. In fact, I really do like these. That was the first thing that I noticed. The second thing that I noticed was that they've changed the buttons to switches here, which I think is absolutely great. The St. James had switches on. It's a bit of a Mesa Boogie thing for me. We all know what quality amps Mesa Boogie are, let's face it. And I think it's better doing it that way. I'm not keen on these push buttons that were on the old MKII, and also those push buttons appear on PVs and EVHs as well, and Marshalls. And the ones on Marshalls are particularly flimsy. but they've replaced them with switches here, and I just prefer them. I just think they look more classy, they look better, and they add to making the head look a lot more expensive, you know. On top of the amp, you get like a quick start guide that takes you around the amp and tells you everything that it can do, which I think is pretty cool. I'm not going to go on about that too much because I know most of the specs anyway. I'd rather just tell you guys and read it all to you. The other thing that I noticed that has changed about the Mark III to the Mark II is that they've swapped the overdrive. So I always thought it was a bit weird when I first started using the Mark II that OD1 was at the bottom and OD2 was at the top. Now OD2 is at the bottom and OD1 is at the top, which is the right way around to me. That's the way they should be, although it will confuse me a bit this time because I've got used to the Mark II, obviously. So let's just go through the front panel here. You have a power on, and then you have a standby. Now if you want to use this for direct recording or anything like that, you need to leave the amp on standby. I'm just saying that now because I get so many questions about how to use the Blackstar gear for recording, but that's how you do it, you leave it on standby. Then you have a toggle switch here that goes from 100 watt down to 10 watt. I don't know how Blackstar do it, but they are the absolute masters of making amps that are big, whopping tube amps be switchable down to like 10 watts, 5 watts, whatever, and they still seem to retain the punch in the low end without getting too thin and useless. The gain structure doesn't seem to change that much. It just seems to be a less wattage amp. I don't know whether they use resistors or whatever, but I'm sure there will be some information on that somewhere lying around. Here we have the master section. We have a volume, presence and resonance, which is pretty standard. We have a reverb control here. Just want to talk about the reverb. It does have a dark and a light setting. I prefer dark as, you know, I'm a metal player. I'll put it on dark anyway, being a metal player, whether it's better or not, but I prefer dark anyway. Here we have the Blackstar ISF control. This is not on the St. James amp, and I don't know whether it's needed or not, to be honest, but on the HTs it does come in quite useful. What I will say is left is supposed to be American and right is supposed to be British. Basically, in my opinion, it's just like a mid, an extra bit of mid control. As you go left on the dial, it scoops the mids out, and as you go right on the dial, which some would call more British, it adds mids in. Now, the further right you go, if you go really right, you get a dark mid. It adds quite a lot of darkness to the tone. If you go super left, it just turns into a lot of fizz that is unusable. A lot of guys just stick it on halfway, or just a bit left, or just a bit right. I actually have it quite high, or I did on the old head. I'll just check actually. Where did I have it? Yeah, I have it quite high. I have it to the right. Sorry, I have it to the right, but not fully up. So there's a point where it gets quite dark in the mid. So I have it before that happens, basically. Treble, middle, and bass. Then you have your channels over here. This part of the amp here is the channels. OD1 is a volume control and a gain control and a voice control there, which we'll talk about in a second. Down at the bottom is OD2, again gain, volume and a voice control. Over here on the clean channel, you have a volume, bass and treble. You don't have a mid, but you do have a voice switch again. We're going to talk about the voice switching now. So OD2 I would describe, which is obviously my main channel, OD2 is kind of loose and gain it until you engage the voice. When you engage the voice, it's like putting a boost in front of the amp. You don't need a boost in front of OD2 if you've got the voice switch on, because it really does give you that boosted metalcore, you know, that classic metalcore type tone. OD1 has two voices as well, so in my opinion, what Blackstar are actually doing here, this is kind of like their JVM, I suppose. They're giving you a channel and a tone and a sound for just about any genre that you could possibly wish to play. You know, there's a tone for absolutely everybody. The tight metal, the old school thrash metal, the doom, you know, the doom type sludgy rock, the classic rock, and also two pristine cleans as well. The big feature that Blackstar will be wanting me to talk about on this amp is the addition of cab rig. Basically, you have cab rig on the back of the head, and there are three presets. It's a direct out, there's an XLR out, and there's also a TRS out too. And you can go straight into a PA, into a desk, you know, or you can go into your interface. Using this, you don't need to take a cab with you or use a cab, or you put the amp on standby. And you can use the presets on there. There are three presets on there, but if you get some Architect software downloaded onto your Mac or PC, you can move around mics, cabs, use them in stereo, change the size of the room. You can do all kinds of things to shape your tone, and you can save your own favorite presets straight from Architect software straight to cab rig, and you can take your presets anywhere on the fly. Okay guys, so what do you think of the cab rig presets that are already in there? Like I said, they're stock presets, they're not my presets. You can open a whole new world with the Architect software and choose different cabs and place the mics as far as you want, and there's post EQ in there and everything like that. But what did you think of them? Did you think they're any good stock out of the head? Would you need to change them? As far as the tubes go in this head, guys, nothing has changed. There's 4 EL34s there in the power section, and there are 2 12AX7s in the preamp section. With the new HT100 Mark III, you'll get a foot switch included. It's a two-way foot switch. On one side here, you can change the voicing, and on the other button, you can flick through the channels. Now, there is another foot switch available as well, which you can buy after, which is a 5-way foot switch, which means that you can one-tap things, and it will give you a lot more accessibility into all the tones and the channels on the amp. There are some other things that I need to tell you about this amp before we go, and Blackstar have told me that they have improved some components in the Mark III from the Mark II that, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, okay, but if you're ever playing at a rehearsal and you're really running your amp hot, you know, so it's on, you know, anywhere like 4-ish, 3-ish, whatever, you're competing with the drummer and a big PA live, you know, any live situation where you've got the amp cranked. Don't know if you've ever noticed this, but some amps, when you plug into them at the beginning of the rehearsal, by the end of the rehearsal your tone has changed slightly and is not always quite as good. That's due to the components in there. Now, Blackstar have improved the component quality in the Mark III for those guys that use it in a rehearsal or live situation. So when they're running it hot, it should sound a lot better over a length of time. Okay guys, so I just want to say as well a quick plug here that if you want to buy this head and you really like how it sounds in this video, please go down below in the description. There's an affiliate link there for Anderton's Music, okay? If you click on that link and go through it and buy anything at all, it helps contribute towards the channel. time for me to go now, guys, but this is not the last you will see of this head. I will be putting this in a shootout against the Mark II. I will also be putting it in a shootout against some of the other amps that you see behind me here. We'll also be putting it in a live situation, in a recording situation, sorry, into the Mac, so you can hear what it sounds like in a mix with the stock presets in there. Let me know what you think of this amp, guys. I really want to know your thoughts on it. Huge thanks to Blackstar Amps, again, not just for creating an amazing product, but also for creating a product that is affordable. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon.